Great. So hello, everyone. Welcome to RBCM at Home Summer. My name's Chris O'Connor, and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. So when I first started working at the museum 10 years ago, I had one project that I wanted to do above all else. That project would take a couple of years to realize, but eventually it was called Sight and Sound. And it was an evening event, a performative installation with musicians, sound artists, poets throughout the museum galleries. A year later, round two of this event was called Museum Amplification Project. And both of these events are still on my list of favorite events during my time here. The first Sight and Sound was when I first met Paul Walde and Tina Pearson, our guests for today. And that event was the beginning of sorts, but they'll explain it more, of Music for Natural History. So today we'll learn a little bit about that project and also how it's evolved over the years. And I'm really interested in hearing that process. And we also have a video, a short 5 to 6 minute video of the performance as well. So we'll show that. We'll show that too. So so welcome Tina and Paul. I'm so glad that you're here.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
So is that correct? When you did Sight and Sound now very many years ago, was that the beginning of Music for Natural History? And was that the beginning when you first started working together, the two of you?
Chris, you actually introduced us. So,
oh, okay.
So that was definitely the beginning. You were working on that program, and I had just arrived here from Ontario only a few weeks earlier. And I remember, I guess it was late January, early February, you invited Tina and I up to the museum to talk about your vision for that. And it was the first time I'd ever set foot in the museum, and it was the first time I met Tina, and everything has kind of evolved from there. So I want to thank you for bringing us together, because it's been a rich and wonderful collaboration. We've collaborated on many projects since then and are continuing to work on Music for Natural History, which has proven to be a really complex and rich project for us.
So Tina, can you maybe like elevator pitch, because it is like a complex project, but like what is at the core of it, what is Music for Natural History? How can you give us a little bit of window in of what this project is?
Well, I think it's safe to say that there's not one core, there's not one heart. And I would like to echo Paul's thanking you. You instigated us, meeting each other. So thank you. I think that I remember when we were going through the museum and you were taking us through the natural history galleries and seeing the forest and seashore dioramas, which are, I think they were made in the 70s, when many museums were kind of building these kind of faux naturalistic environments for people to kind of immerse themselves in as if they were in the wilderness, including with sound coming in. In the museum, there's the burbling brook, and the sounds of all the creatures there. And I think that it was pretty immediate, I think, Paul, that we because we could have chosen other places in the museum to do sound work. Mm-hmm. I think it was pretty immediate that we were really thinking about really trying to work with what the sounds would be and replicating those sounds in the museum. I think for me, what the project has become is a pretty deep, I guess, reflection and investigation that's ongoing into my relationship with especially the creatures in the environment. And for the people who've participated in it, it has really become something that's quite poignant, I guess, with regard to not trying to make music out of something we're hearing there, but like really for me it is anyway, is trying to understand it, trying to understand what these sounds are, and really feeling just at the tip of the iceberg about using sound to deepen a relationship with that world.
And it also seems like it's a collective effort between the two of you, but then you're working with many different people. So it's a large group effort that everyone's bringing their own thoughts and ideas and their skills and listening skills and music skills to the table. What has that process been like in terms of working with the community to engage with this, and how's that shifted over time? Either of you can answer that. Paul, do you want to take that one?
Well, Chris, it has been really interesting, and Tina has a lot of experience running workshops and being a facilitator and doing facilitated composition. So I think for Tina, it's very natural. And, I have an experience as an educator, and in some of my projects, I work with a lot of people. So I don't think it's unusual for either of us to work with community in this way. But certainly, teaching the musicians or providing them with the information to self-teach about the animals and how the animals interact and how they signal each other or make sounds. It was very rewarding and complex. I think it was more complex than either of us kind of imagined it could be. The concept of the piece is fairly simple. Let's create a performance that creates a naturalistic soundscape of what is happening in the dioramas, and it would be equally artificial as the dioramas, right? We are performing these soundscapes acoustically and without any effects or electronics or pre-recorded tapes. So people are creating this sound that sounds like it belongs there, and everything's kind of in its right place, but at the same time, it's completely artificial. And to do that convincingly is quite difficult. The performers, rather than have a set notation, they have to get inside those sounds and understand them to be able to perform them. And I do remember one of our performers saying that while they're in the midst of that performance, walking outside and suddenly recognizing the birds that were in their yard and having some sense of what they might be communicating with one another. So, that was really rewarding to understand that the first audience for the piece was the performers. So, and we did spend quite a bit of time, as you remember, traipsing people through there and having long rehearsals at the museum, which you guys were kind enough to host, because it was quite an effort just communicating with all those folks and with emails and everything and coordinating everyone.
Oh, it's such a pleasure just to be a witness to that, especially with a gallery where a lot of times people go through and it's meaningful and but they're walking through, maybe they come multiple times, but for this kind of project where your group was coming back and back and back and back and listening and deepening into that experience of listening, was a really powerful thing to witness. I think that's actually a good maybe transition to seeing the work. So if that's okay, maybe I'll share this recording. So it's just for everyone who's watching, it's about 5 to 6 minutes. And just
we should explain that it's not a video of the performance.
Yeah. Do you want to set it up, Tina, in terms of what we're seeing?
Okay. So when we did I think it was 6 performances at the museum. Was it, Chris? I think. Yeah. After we didn't want to have any equipment in there. We really wanted people to be able to focus on the experience. So what we did after that performance part was over was we booked the Philip T. Young Concert Hall at UVic, and Kirk McNally recorded everybody doing all this, the individual calls. So we didn't record the actual performances. We recorded all the individual sounds, including wind and water sounds, surf. And then we subsequently then had sessions in the museum where we filmed with film the dioramas alone, and then with us in the dioramas kind of going through different parts of the performance. So what you're seeing is a short trailer of what is really will be about an hour long work. Is that about right, Paul?
Yeah, you know, the plan is to create an audiovisual installation out of it that will allow people to immerse themselves in the work in a different way than they could during the performance. So we're not trying to recreate the performance. We're taking elements from the compositions that we developed for the performance and reworking them for a gallery setting.
Great.
And this is just a trailer.
Right, a little teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah, a teaser. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Teaser.
Because they are half-hour long compositions.
Each. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Here we go. Ah, so good.
It makes me sad.
Does it?
Yeah, well, just I think one of the in researching the project, and I think when I first moved here too, I was sort of just researching the soundscape here, and realizing that all of these sounds and all of these creatures, were once really all around us here, right at the museum, on museum grounds, and you could hear whales, and the sea lions were around, and everything was here. So it's especially what we've been through the past couple of weeks is it's a stark reminder of the loss of that, and just seeing us again, it's almost like we're trying to trying to make them come to life somehow by making these sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really struck by that. This watching at this time of just like is almost like a call to action. Especially there was a point where toward the end where there's a group in front of the birds in the seashore where it's like oh yeah, no, it almost felt like heart-wrenching in a way. And I was really struck also with this watching of just how still those taxidermied specimens in the gallery are, like the frozenness of that, and I was also really struck by how you are also like intent with your eye contact with each other, like that also mirrored with the animals within the exhibition, that like the eyes just seem really like provocative in both the human animals and the animals in that space. So so this is a teaser. This is a short of what will become a longer piece. I know for me, like even just watching that, I slowed down, and I imagine if this is an installation within a space, that I might even like want to lie down. I might like it sort of invites people just to slow and listen both their ears and their eyes. You want to talk a little bit about where you see this project going a bit more, and what you want to see come out of it, or where you see it evolving to? Either of you could take that.
Well, Paul, go ahead.
Well, we have a lot of ideas, but just on that note on slowing down, I think that's something that Tina and I are both really interested in, and we explore in our individual practices as well. And trying to come up with ways of doing things that inspires that kind of listening that has inspired our practices so much. And it requires slowing down. And quite often, even when we arrive to play, we're doing a lot of playing outside now with a practice that Tina's developing called biospheric art practice. And we have to slow down when we get there before we can start playing. And but and in my own practice, I'm really thinking about how can we do time-based media differently? And we're kind of bombarded with information all the time, in our Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds, Twitter, the news cycle, everything's happening really fast. And, to have the time to slow down, I think is really important. And I've noticed that people do want longer experiences. And, we'll see people binge watch, an entire series on Netflix in one weekend. So I think there is a desire for longer engagement with media somehow. And, I really see sound and this becoming a video installation. Time is the medium in these that we're dealing with. So if we can get people on a different wavelength, I think it, I sort of see that as a little bit of activism in that as well, you know, trying to allow for different kinds of experiences and hopefully different kinds of revelations that people have when they're have time to think. And I think that's one of the disadvantages, one of the things, the result of being bombarded with information all the time is you don't have time to think. So hopefully that's one of the things we're giving our audiences in some ways.
And it makes me think also that durational quality of while watching the piece or being involved in the piece, but then like you mentioned earlier, that awareness once you're out in nature or where you, like later, it's almost like the piece extends like forever after, because it's an awareness, it's a
And I think
that recognition, like, oh, that's that thing that I heard, and I saw the animal that was making that sound in that video, and I hear the sound. I can't see the animal, like, but I can hear it. It must be that. It must be that animal.
Right. Do you envision, is this the installation, do you envision it as a multi-channel installation so that it's like from different perspectives and you're kind of immersed in those projections, or how do you
kind of see the forest as one installation and then the shoreline as a different installation?
Okay.
We even want to create smaller installations with the piece that Tina wrote for the mammoth, and then the pre-recorded piece that didn't have performers with the Delta birds and
that was more industrial, if I remember.
It was more industrial. That one, yeah, that one had the incursion of humans coming into it. That was our parting gift. When people are leaving, exiting, they got to hear construction going on the Delta, which, you know, that hasn't slowed down in 10 years, has it? You know, it seems to be hit a feverish pitch at this point.
What we're working on now is an audio production that we need to finish. So we're taking all of the recordings and recomposing them. So the recordings of all the individual calls, and then putting them together, mixing them together into the two main compositions. But we've also, we received a Canada Council Digital Originals grant to do short vignettes of different kind of little scenarios. And so we have a Bandcamp release EP of a short selection of those. So the next steps are purely audio, and then we would love to, as Paul's saying, working on the installation, we'd love to perform it live again, and we'd love to work with others places and different dioramas. I think that you mentioned working with people and the way we worked with everybody, and I think that really comes out in also what you were saying about the slowing down and hearing things, because everyone was really engaged in it. It wasn't like you had notation that was really specific. It was, how can we make these sounds? So we used some Western notation, we used audio, we used, just mimicry, we used graphics, we used what would these animals be doing, so everyone was really quite deeply engaged in that process. And I think that when you're witnessing that, you're listening to that to that kind of commitment of the whole person is a different kind of performance listening. And I think it comes out even just in the audio. So,
absolutely. Yeah. It made me think a little bit. I was remembering when I was watching the video of watching the rehearsal process and the group, almost like a flock of birds. But then I was thinking like a flock of birds that it looks like they're all doing the same thing, but then they maybe like the bird that's like ruffling their feathers, or like there's a lot of like things that are not in sync.
Yeah.
Even though like there's this larger sort of structure of being in sync that is like beautiful to watch. And I saw that within your group, just this like all working together, but all having their individual skills and their individual personalities that were shining through that as well. So we Paul put the Bandcamp link in the Zoom chat. Jenny will put that in the Facebook Live comments as well. And I just wanted to say also that Marnie, after watching the videos, said, "Wow, this is so awesome," and I agree. It's so amazing, and it's like it has been such a gift to watch both of the project evolve and grow into something like just continuing to become more and more beautiful and impactful, but then also the two of you working together and growing together as artists has been a real gift to watch as well. So
well, you created us, Chris.
oh.
Yeah,
Just happened that you both came at the same day. Because I had just moved over from Vancouver as well, and as part of the Vancouver Soundscape Soundwalk Collective, and someone had said you have to connect with Tina, just because I think you'll have a lot to talk about, and it was true. And Paul, I had just heard that you had just moved, and it just seemed like the work that you were doing just aligned so well with at least my thinking of what like good, meaningful, impactful art is. And I know that you continue to do that at UVic, being the support for lots of artists and within the community as well. So thank you so much, you two, for all your work and being amazing artists and beautiful people too. So,
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
It's a real
Chris.
pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to connect.
yeah, so thanks everyone for joining in. If there are any questions on the project, please feel free to, we'll give a moment just for any possible questions about the project, about the work. Also, like wherever you are, just like listen out your window, or just invite you today to listen even just like a little bit more closely than you might normally do. So and let us know what you hear. So thanks everyone. I don't see any questions, so we'll end the session now. So